Welcome back everyone to part 3 of Pawn Wars. Today we're going to be looking at the Rook. Let's do a quick recap and we'll see some synergy between all of our pieces. The pawn moves forward but captures diagonal. The bishop moves diagonal like an X in 4 directions. A rook also moves in 4 directions. It moves straight like the pawn, but 4 directions like the bishop. So think of a plus sign. And that's how the rook moves. Everything the bishop can do, the rook can do as well. Just like the bishop can go as far as it wants, the rook can do that too by going as far as it wants. The difference between them is the fact that the rook can stop on any of the colors. The rook is able to switch between light and dark. The bishop is not able to do that. If the bishop is on the dark square, it will forever be on the dark square, which is the reason why the rook is worth more points. The pawn is worth 1, the bishop is worth 3, but the rook is worth 5. As you see, the more the piece can do, the more the piece is worth. Now that we have the board set back up to Pawn Wars, we can see how the rook works with a pawn. We're going to look at the same example of pawn going to e4 and how we're going to support it. So pawn to e4, e5, and I want to go to d4, just like last time, except black is still defending it. So if I went there, he would capture me. So that would be a very bad square. We don't want that to happen. In the first video, we looked at supporting it with the c-pawn. In the second video, we looked at supporting it with a bishop. This video, we're going to look at it for the rook. Take a second and see if you can think of where the rook can go to support the pawn going to d4. I really want to bring him to d4. Right now I need to protect it. If you found rook to d1, then you were correct. After I play rook to d1, it doesn't look like the rook supports d4, but once we move the pawn, you'll see I do support d4. And so if he captures me, I can recapture back. This is a good way to help support your pawns when you're moving them down and you need to use your rook to do it. Let's look at the same example, but we're going to bring all of our pieces back. We have the c-pawn, the bishop, and the rook all ready to support the pawn going to d4. We really want to play this move, and now we're able to do it. If I go ahead and play d4, you'll notice it will lead to a massive capture, where at the end, we each lost 3 points. He lost 2 pawns and a bishop, and I lost 2 pawns and a bishop. Something I want to point out here is every time I do this, I'm always taking with the most powerful pieces last. In part 2, I always captured with the bishop last. Remember the point value. Pawns are worth 1, bishops are worth 3, rooks are worth 5. If that's the case, if I were to move up to d4, and he captures back, and I take with the rook, he does not have to continue. He can just stop right here. White's ready to recapture, but black's not going to do this. That would be bad for him. Notice he has 2 rooks and 2 bishops, and I have 1 rook and 2 bishops. So if he did this back, yes, he would give back some of the points, but right now he's up a whole lot. This is why it's important that we take with the most powerful pieces last. There are some situations where capturing with the strongest piece first is beneficial. In this situation, it is not. So we will capture with the rook last. If you go ahead and go this way, yes, he's going to take the bishop now, but let's look at what this would do. He still lost only 5 points, but I lost 7 points. So this isn't as bad as the first situation. I'm still down 2 points. Remember this when you're playing Pawn Wars. Make sure you're using your bishops and your rooks and your pawns a few times before moving on to part 4, where we bring in another piece. Thanks for watching part 3, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.